The first piece of coaching that I would give around what to do with fire costumes is, I mean, obviously I'm talking fire safe. Some people are willing to use non-safe fabrics, but I am not that person. The things I would recommend looking at are putting lines down the side of your pants, because that gives you, well, it gives dimension, but it also gives a line that the eye can follow in the dark. So you're often performing in the dark, but your legs get lost. So if you're dancing, people aren't actually seeing that you're dancing. And I think it's useful to put a line on the outside, but it also can be interesting to put lines on the inside. And what you do is you put a light color there that will reflect the fire more. The easy way to do it is you cut the seam of a pair of pants, and then you put a flared strip all the way around the, you know, from the ankles all the way up through the gusset, and you make it flared so that you've made a bell bottom, and you have this nice thing that peekaboos when you move your leg, right? So they'll see it on the inside of your leg. You can do it on the inside and the outside. You could do a triangle insert here that helps. And then you could do the same thing with shrugs. The easiest recipe I've seen for a shrug is to take a pair of leggings and cut the gusset of it so that comes over your head, and now the legs become your sleeves. And then what you can do, it's such an easy thing, and you put it down so that it's covering just below your boobs. This is great if you're using fans, especially if you want to do folding work with your fans and you don't want to be hitting your arms. And then you can put a small bit of fabric here, so you wouldn't use as large a piece as you would use on the stripe of the pants. Or HPV, heat press vinyl, so you get a Cricut, you get it cut out with a Cricut machine or something, and then you have little symbols. It could be, I mean, you could have like little flames that you put on your costume, or you could do like the 4-petal anti-spin on there, right? And then if you use heat press vinyl, it's totally safe because you put that much heat on it to actually apply it. And as long as it's stuck down well, it'll work. I've tested some and it's worked well. And then you can put it so that you have, especially if you get the reflective kind, you can now have a reflective surface down your sleeve, or you can put it across your chest, or you can put it on your back, or you can put it on the center of your back here, or you can put it on your butt, or you can put it down your legs. If you have a Cricut, you can print it yourself. I'm gonna actually take a picture that has good contrast. If you have a black and white photo, you could just pick out the color that you don't want, and then the other color you print. Or it'll cut that color, that shape out. So you could do that in heat press vinyl in those shapes, and then you could heat press home. I mean, I got a serger because I thought that solved my problem, and it did. It was much easier to do with a serger. Yeah, because the serger well, the thing is you just line up the fabric and then it cuts off the excess as it makes the seam. And boom, you're done. This is why the serger is so much better than a sewing machine. With a sewing machine, if you're gonna do what I said, you have to pin the whole thing, and then you have to sew it. And it's so annoying. Whereas you could just take the fabric that's cut, lay it down, and you want to put right side to right side, and then you run the serger down the seam, bam, it's done. And that's it. It's so easy. And then you put your cutting knife down, and it'll trim off the excess. So even if your cut isn't exactly perfect, you can leave a little extra margin on the fabric that you're inserting. And then when you line it up, so your knife would be here. As it's running through like this, it sews back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and cuts as it's being fed. And the most frustrating part of using a serger in my experience is threading it, because it might take a half hour to thread it. That I think sometimes hand sewing is easier than using a machine when you're just using a sewing machine. I don't feel the same way about a serger. A serger is like miraculous. And if you're using the same stretched kind of fabric next to each other and you're serging, it's just, dude, so this is a serge seam. Okay, so I designed this especially as an outside seam. I wanted it to be outside so that it was showing as a contrast with some color. But you could do it as an inside and it would look like this. See? Yeah, it's amazing. It's heat press rhinestones. I used my heat press for my Cricut, but yes, you could use an iron. I couldn't find it anymore. I can't find this kind, but they do have heat press. I got them on Amazon. You could do fabric glue, but I feel like it's slow. It's the whole hotfix thing. I sent you links a while ago. It's hotfix. it's hot fix. So this is all hot fix. But this is strips as opposed to individual stones. So you could get individual stones. Well, it looks better than my sewing too. Serger does look better than a sewing machine in my opinion. But also I've been practicing for a long time. I made the decision that I was going to make this investment because I wanted to be a better presented performer and I wanted to have better costumes. And then I went to people to get costumes and the quotes I got were like, oh, 500, 700 for the sorts of things I was looking for. And I was like, well, I could get a machine and a whole bunch of fabric and I could make something for less than what you're going to charge me. And I did. And then as I started doing it more. And then what I did to teach myself how to sew was I went to the thrift store and I got thrifted items that didn't fit me and I made them fit me by putting them all together. Hot fix may be your quickest solution. Or even if you've seen that dress that I have that has the rhinestones on it, that it was in my profile. It's in my profile picture that I have on Facebook right now, which is the one where I'm hooping and doing poi at the same time. There's a whole bunch of rhinestones on it. That whole design is just rhinestones. And some of them were actually glued, not hot fix. Because the bigger ones, I do actually think the glue works better than the hot fix. It's hard to get it hot enough unless you have a heat press, which I didn't have at the time when I made that. Oh, no, E6000 it. No. Yes, E6000. Don't fabric glue. Yeah. No, E6000 is a much better choice, but the problem from my perspective with doing an outfit with E6000 is it takes a long time because if you move it while it's still wet, the stones don't necessarily stay set in the right place if you accidentally hit them on something as you're working with the outfit. So it can take a while. That's the only thing. You know what you could also do is, just like you did with that, you can get some fabric that's fancy looking, like they make some stretch denim that has holographic material on it, and you could cut out shapes and you could do applique with E6000 underneath it to applique the shapes on, which is like using a Cricut, only not. You can also get, there's fabric stores have them and you can get them online where you can get applique rhinestones that are like they use for wedding outfits that you could put on your bodysuit. You could do something like that as well and use E6000 on that also. That would be very easy. And then the other thing that is a really easy, cheap thing that you can do is the aesthetic where you slit cottons and then you do ties on those. And I found a bunch of tutorials that I put in one of the articles on the website that can be useful as a starting point for looking into that. Put another layer underneath, and then you have the color contrast. And you can do that with everything. You could also do it with layered shirts. So you can have a really slit up top layer in black, and you want your top layer to be black because that's what's going to touch the soot. And then you have your colored layer underneath, and then you've got the contrast. And then you can have the top layer be as racy as you want and still be conservative enough in whatever environment that you're in.